Ukrainian 24th Brigade precision strike kills hundreds of Russian troops in Chasiv Yar. Today, intense fighting rages in Toretsk and Chasiv Yar. Russian forces launched relentless assaults in a bid to break through the final Ukrainian defensive lines. Intense fighting is currently ongoing in the urban areas, but as a concentration of over 100 Russian soldiers was detected in preparation for a final assault, Ukrainians launched a devastating airstrike with bunker-buster munitions, eliminating hundreds of Russian soldiers at once. The fighting demonstrating the extensive military engagement from both sides. Ukrainian forces, including the 24th Brigade, the 5th Brigade, and National Guard units, are reported to be holding their ground with notable resilience. The goal of the Russian forces in this area is to take control of Chasiv Yar. A breakthrough in this town will enable the Russians to breach the last major Ukrainian line of defense in front of the much larger town of Kostiantynivka. To take over Chasiv Yar, the Russian forces are engaging in brutal close-quarters fighting in the central part of the town, where their advance is measured in inches, while suffering severe casualties. Russian forces are deploying squads of infantry stormtroopers in narrow urban areas combined with artillery and close air support. The dense urban environment, including the central high-rise building district and the industrial zone of the local refractory plant, heavily determines the style of fighting in the central part of the town. While heavy fighting occurs for the refractory plant, the Ukrainian forces maintain stable control of the central high-rise buildings.
Fire!
While Russian and Ukrainian forces have drone and air parity in this direction, Ukrainians have demonstrated a greater ability to utilize their resources. The control of the central high-rise buildings, which overlook Russian positions in the industrial zone and residential houses below, allows them to conduct effective reconnaissance and targeting against Russian movement through the town. Meanwhile, Russian artillery and air support lack the precision of the Ukrainian forces. However, they compensate through the high density of their artillery fire and airstrikes, with Russians dropping up to 4 glide bombs on a single position, hoping to hit their target successfully. Footage released by Ukrainian fighters reveals how the intense Russian shelling and bombing led to the near-complete destruction of the town, where only walls are left from most buildings. This further worsened the Russian situation because the widespread destruction of infrastructure with inaccurate shelling and airstrikes led to minimal Ukrainian losses, while it also destroyed any cover and concealment that Russian forces needed for advancing, as Russian movements became ever exposed to Ukrainian drone reconnaissance and following precision strikes. Because of this lack of cover, Ukrainian drone operators discovered that Russian forces were gathering in basements and bunkers around Kalinivka, from where they advanced into northern Chasiv Yar and towards the refractory plant. In response, Ukrainians intensified their surveillance of the area and soon spotted a group of Russian soldiers moving through the abandoned pipelines and into the basement of the water treatment facility. As Ukrainians waited to see what the Russians would do, they quickly counted over 100 Russian soldiers gathered in the basement below the building. It became clear that the Russians were preparing a final, all-out assault to overwhelm Ukrainian defenders in the central district. With such an assault being able to turn the tide of the battle, Ukrainians called in the Air Force to launch a bunker-buster JDAM bomb on the building. As the footage shows, the bomb effectively breached and penetrated deep into the ground, destroying the Russian underground bunker and killing all Russian soldiers inside. To hide their losses and make room for new soldiers to gather in the facility's basement to continue their assaults, Russian commanders ordered the bodies to be burnt, causing a sickening smell to spread over the town. In the end, Russians planned to gather a large group of soldiers to launch a final overwhelming assault on Ukrainian positions, which Ukrainian drone operators quickly detected. To eliminate this threat, Ukrainians launched a devastating airstrike that killed over 100 Russian soldiers. The suddenness and severity of these losses have also severely devastated Russian morale and offensive efforts in the town as Russians struggle to push forward. The Russian command will likely have to pause their operations in Chasiv Yar to find new accumulation points in the rear for their soldiers to prevent the Ukrainian forces from continuing their deadly precision strikes.